So I just want to finish up a little bit on talking about Danny Thomas. Was he influential in your career? Did he help you at all in Hollywood?
Not really. Strangely enough, it wasn't Danny at all that was instrumental in my career. I would have liked to have had hoped that he would have been, considering the fact that I was Lebanese and I came from Toledo, Ohio, and that I was out here struggling. I did some of his shows that he owned. I did the Andy Griffith Show and I'm trying to remember some of the other shows that I did, but not really. It wasn't until later that he sort of befriended me, and it was at a party at Casey Kasem's house, and he was there with his wife, and he said to Joy and me, he says, "Hey, let's go out and have a bite to eat afterwards." I was shocked because I was never that close with Danny, and we went to Bistro Gardens, and we had a great time. He was telling stories and that. And then when he was honored at the Friars Club, normally they do a roast, and they only have the guys there, and they tell these dreadful stories, really vulgar, terrible stories with all kinds of terrible language in it. He said, "No, I didn't want that. I want a nice family, one with the wives there and everything else." And he called and said, "I want you on the dais." So there I was, right behind Danny on the dais, along with all these other stars. And as I said, he got friendlier with me. A lot of times when I'd go to the studio, I just never met with Dan. He had writers like Bullock and Allen, Ray Allen and Harvey Bullock, that worked a lot for Danny, that they always wanted me in their shows and would write things, and that I would be in it. But no, I never was. I knew his one sister, Emily. I used to tease him. I say, "Danny, my dad had the little corner grocery store right next to your mom and dad's there on Locust and Ontario Street." I said, "Do you know you still owe us for a leg of lamb?" Never did get the money. But I used to joke with him like that, yeah. He was a wonderful comedian, great storyteller, and just a great humanitarian.
Now, one of his shows was the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Back to the Dick Van Dyke Show. See, I knew we'd get back to that. Well, I got the part of Snappy Service. Now, Joy and I got married, okay? We got married after I had done the greatest story ever told. We got married while we were doing the movie. And we got married in an Orthodox church. I'm Eastern Orthodox. And I had all the apostles there, and I had Mary Mother, and I had Max von Sydow, who was Jesus Christ. They were all sitting in the front row. And our priest he's very nervous. Joy and I are standing up in front of him, and he's starting to shake. I said, Father Paul, I said, "Father, are you all right?" He says, "No, I'm nervous." I said, "What's the matter?" And he looks down at Max von Sydow, who played Jesus Christ. He says, "This is the first time I ever worked in front of the boss." So we had all the apostles. Anyway, we got married while we were doing during the show. And so now it's after that. I've shaved my beard. I'm doing the Dick Van Dyke Show, and of course, as I mentioned to you, my wife Joy's from Danville, Illinois, and Dick Van Dyke is from Danville, Illinois, and so is his brother Jerry Van Dyke. And actually, Joy lived right around the corner from them in Danville, but they didn't know each other. All right, and do you know who else is from Danville, Illinois? Donald O'Connor, Gene Hackman, and Bobby Short, the great pianist and singer. All from this small town, 44,000 people in Danville, Illinois. So anyway, Joy and Dick met, and they had great fun reminiscing about the city and so forth. So I did about 5 or 6 of those shows, and I thought, boy, I'm on my way again. Here I go. Zooming to the top. Well, what happened is somebody in the higher up decided that they wanted another actor to come in and play the role. In our business, if you've been in it for a long time, you make friends. And apparently there was an actor who they all knew who was out of work and needed the job. So we said goodbye to Jamie Farr and Snappy Service, and they brought in this other actor. So there I was again. out, no job. Joy's out working, trying to make ends meet. We got this little house in Studio City that we bought. Had one bed, a Riviera sofa that you'd pull out the bed, and a TV set and TV trays. That's all we had for furniture. And so at any rate, I'm saying, oh, here we go again. Where am I going to get another job? And then I get this phone call for a day's work on the Danny Kaye show. It was with Peter Falk was the guest star, and I had just a couple lines on it. And the writers on the show were all the Sid Caesar writers: Mel Tolkien, Sheldon Keller, Herbie Baker, etc. So I had these just a couple of lines, and it was done in front of a live audience. And again, Danny Kaye was one of my favorites. Also, I thought he was just brilliant in movies as an actor, as a comedian, etc. So I had these lines, big laughs I get with the audience. So they call me back. So now they're deciding, hey, wait a minute. We got the Sid Caesar writers. We'll make Danny Kaye Sid Caesar. We'll make Harvey Korman Carl Reiner. And we'll make Jamie Farr Howard Morris. So my career took off again. We were doing all kinds of great sketches on the show. I just, that to me, I really enjoy doing sketch comedy where you play all these characters. And we had one, Danny would love to do accents, and I liked accents also. And we did a Western where how you would do it three different ways. The Western where he's the cowboy, he's got his hat and he's got his guitar. And I come in, I say, I'm going to get you. I'm shooting it out with you now. And I draw my gun, and he shoots me. And I go, ouch, and I die. Okay? Now he says, now we're going to do it the way the Scots would do it. So now he's in a kilt, and instead of a guitar, he's got bagpipes. And so, so I come in, all right, I'm going to shoot you now. And he goes, I'll get you. And he shoots me, and I went, Mick, ouch. Got a big laugh. So now they said, okay, now we're going to do it the way the Russians do it. So the writers gave me this line after I had done McCouch. And instead of now the kilts and that, he's got the Russian hat on and a balalaika. And he's going to do, all right, I'm going to shoot you. Yeah, were you going to shoot me? I'm going to shoot you. He shoots me and I go, ow, shit, shun you. So those are the kind of sketches we used to do. We did. We had one funny one. Remember a movie called The Great Escape with Steve McQueen? We did one with that. We had great guest stars. We had Terry Thomas and Mills. Sir Mills. I can't think of his first name. Wonderful, Sir John Mills. And Harvey Korman and I, we're the Germans. And if you remember, they're in a Stalag there, and you can't escape. And Harvey's playing this Nazi. He's got a moniker. He's got his jacket on over there. And I'm playing his aide, this little sergeant who's got a whistle and my German helmet. And the only thing that kept the helmet from going down to my shoulders was my nose. This helmet was right about here. And we had the German accents. And Harvey comes in, he goes, all right, now, you're escaping this. He says, we have machine guns out there, we got barbed wire fences out there, and there's a great big mean doggy in the yard. So, you're escaping days are over. Lights out. So he turns the lights out, and he goes, oh, one more thing. He turns the lights on, and everybody's gone. So Harvey goes, sick him, doggy, sick him. Silly stuff like that. And I get, oh boy, my career's on the way again. I'm going to the top. Well, they let me go. Oh, we did one. Oh gosh, this was the funniest. We did one routine. It was called the Three Musketeers. Art Carney was the guest on that one. And do you remember the Ritz Brothers? Ritz Brothers were very funny. And so we did kind of a takeoff on the Ritz Brothers. We're the Three Musketeers. They had this huge staircase. And so what we do is we're the Musketeers. We got the Musketeer hats on and the swords and poofed out pantaloons and everything else. And we come down the stairs and we're going, fight, 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 one for all and all for one. And Danny pulls his sword out, and Harvey and I, we can't get our swords out, so he goes, all right, back up the stairs. So we go back up the stairs again. We do the routine. Fight, 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 fight. Come down there. One for all for one. And Danny pulls his sword out. Harvey and I can't get our swords out. Go one more time. We do the same thing in threes, right? Fight, 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 fight. One for all for one. Harvey and I pull our swords out. Now Danny can't get his sword. So then we take our hat caps off, and I've got mouse ears on underneath that, and so Danny starts hitting me. We're the musketeers, not the mouseketeers. I mean, those are great routines.
And tell us a little bit about working with Danny Kaye himself.
Danny was he's one, I think, probably the most brilliant of all the comedians. He's a brilliant actor, dancer, singer, plays instruments. He's just wonderful. Danny was tough, though. He was a perfectionist, and he liked to rehearse, and it had to be done his way. There are some comedians that are very, very friendly and have fun and so forth. Red Skelton was that way. Red didn't care about rehearsal. He'd have fun. And Bob Hope was, a little different on some of the things. And Milton Berle. But Danny was, he was tough. He was tough to work with. You had to have it right. The timing had to be right. I got along with him fine. As I said, I never made problems on any of the sets. At least I tried not to. And so I had great admiration for him. He wasn't the friendliest of the comedians, but I think he certainly was one of the brightest and most talented of them. But as I said, I got let go again, so I was. Where was I going to go from here now?
Well, let's talk about a
How
couple.
the heck did I get here to begin with?
Let's talk about a couple of shows that happened around the same time. You had guest appearances on My Three Sons.
My Three Sons, yes, I did that. And that's interesting because I don't know if you know anything about the show, but I didn't know Fred McMurray. I became friends with Fred years later. But Fred, when he did My Three Sons, they'd have all the scripts written, and then Fred would come in and shoot all of his scenes. So unless you had a two-shot with him, which rarely happened, you would come in and he wouldn't even be there. And so you'd do your whole scene. Well, you're talking to him and everything else, but they would cut, they'd intercut back and forth. If you didn't have a two-shot, who cares? He's not even there. I don't even remember working with Fred when I did the show. I played some kind of hippie or beatnik or whatever the heck it was. But years later, I met him. He was a nice guy. I think he was married to June Haver then when I met Fred. Great guy. He played in some of the golf tournaments. He loved golf. So I got to know him at the Dinah Shore when Dinah, bless her heart, I love Dinah. She was a great lady. At her tournament, and then Andy Williams' tournament when Andy had one down in San Diego at Torrey Pines. But I did that, and I did I Dream of Jeannie. I did My Favorite Martian. And who directed that? John Erman, the gentleman I told you about. I used to drive in my little Model A Ford to the set at MGM. John directed that. I did a lot of. I did Lucy.
Tell us a little bit about working on Lucy.
Lucy was the best. I tell you, she was tough. You better bring something to the table when you do her show. And I did this show with her, and she liked me. She liked me right away. She saw that tickle, that I talk about all the time. And we became friends after that. As a matter of fact, later on when I did the revival of Oklahoma, and I was at the Pantages Theater, I played the part of Ali Hakam, which incidentally was originally written for Danny Thomas. And Danny Thomas couldn't do it, so a wonderful actor by the name of Joseph Buloff played Ali Hakam. And so this was the revival with Oscar Hammerstein's grandson, I believe, directing, and Agnes DeMille came out of retirement to recreate the ballet. And Lucy came to see the show, gave me a big hug, and she was just a terrific lady. If she liked you, she liked you. If she didn't like you, be careful, boy. She wanted to make sure that you brought something to the show, that you didn't just walk through it or talk through it, that you gave something to the audience with the character that you were playing. So I miss her a great deal. Can I tell you the story? It's Marvin Davis, the billionaire oil man, bought 20th Century Fox when I was doing MASH. And he used to have this thing called the Carousel Ball, which was for juvenile diabetes. And so he'd invite stars, get them on private airplanes, and fly up to Denver, Colorado, where he had the Carousel Ball. So he asked me, he said, would you come there and appear and everything for me? And I said, well, Mr. Davis, I'd like to, but I said, I don't fly private airplanes. He says, no, this is great. He said, it's a Gulf Western Stream, or I don't know, Gulf Stream. I don't know the name of those things. And he said, we have great pilots. I'll send the car for you, and we'll take you to the air. You'll fly. Believe me, it's a wonderful. I said, all right. So the car picks me up. I think I'm living at this house, and they take, I think it's Santa Monica Airport. And so I board the airplane, and on the airplane is Lucille Ball and her daughter Lucy Arnaz and her son-in-law Larry Luckenbill, and in the days Mr. and Mrs. Gregory Peck and Mr. and Mrs. Cary Grant. So I go to sit down, and Lucy comes, come on, get over here. So they close the door. She says, you sit up here. She says, there are a bunch of snobs back there. Don't you sit with them. You sit with me here, up here. And at that time, you could smoke on the airplane. Lucy loved to smoke her cigarettes. So I was up there with her telling stories and everything else. And the plane lands, and we start to get off the airplane, and Marvin Davis is there. And he goes, Jamie, how was the flight? I said, Mr. Davis, don't you ever do this to me again. He says, why? He says, wasn't the flight good? I said, the flight was great. But I said, do you realize if that airplane had crashed, I would have gotten last billing in the obituary column.
That's a good one. Let's see, other shows that you did during that time were Donna Reed show?
Donna Reed? Did I do the Donna Reed show? I didn't. No. I don't remember what I played at the Donna Reed. You gotta be kidding me.
How about Ben Casey?
I know, I like Ben Casey. I remember I did it with, I think it was Lainey Kazan. I did the Ben Casey. I forgot what I played in that. But yeah, I did. That was when the doctor shows, Dr. Kildare and Ben Casey. Listen, I did anything I could to stay alive, to pay my bills, the rent, the food on the table. I actually did a show, and I'll tell you who the director was, Barney Gerard. And I did a show called You Are There. It had been a radio show, and it was actually a TV show. It was done. It was done with film, and Walter Cronkite was the narrator of it. And I played Abe Kradushinsky, a World War I Medal of Honor recipient, Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. And I met Walter Cronkite's daughter at some place. She says, you worked with my dad. I said, I did? What was it? She says, you were there. And I go, oh, my gosh, I do. Donna Reed, I don't remember. You got to help me with that one. But You Are There, I did. Oh my goodness, some of the ones I'm trying to remember. It's very difficult.
What did you play on I Dream of Jeannie?
I think I obviously must have played an Arab of some sort, in the thing. I don't remember what I did on that show. I was very good friends with Barbara Eden because she was married to Michael Ansara at the time, and Michael was a dear friend. Michael's American Lebanese also. And so I don't remember what I did. I know I did the show, and as I did My Favorite Martian. I don't remember what I did on that. I did a lot of those.
What kinds of roles were you getting at the time? Was there sort of a common
Yeah, there
thread?
was like, anything that was kind of off the wall kind of parts. With my face, I wasn't playing your normal, hi there, this is Joe Brown or whatever. So I'd either play a hippie, a beatnik, an Arab, an Indian, a Greek, a Mexican. In those days, they weren't so heavily empowered to say, yes, you got to hire, if somebody's Greek, you hire a Greek. If somebody's Mexican, you have to hire a Mexican. In those days, we did all the accents. And if you were swarthy, you played all the different parts. I played Andy Griffith. We did Gypsies on that one, if I remember. Wonderful actor. So it's amazing. I go back and I think of all the different characters that I played with different accents. I did a Hazel. Now that I played an Italian in that one, I had an Italian accent.
Did you encounter any kind of racism at that point?
No, of course not. I mean, everybody. Listen, Anthony Quinn won the Academy Award. He's not Greek. He was Zorba the Greek. Paul Muni and Louise Rainier in The Good Earth playing Chinese. In those days, that's what people did. You played the parts. It's called acting. You're supposed to convince somebody that that's who you are.
You mentioned Andy Griffith. What was it like working with you? Had worked with
Andy was great.
previously?
I had done No Time for Sergeants with him, and there are some people, when you do their shows, that they're really genuinely nice people, and they make you feel comfortable on the show. And Andy was one of those people. I did a couple movies with Charlton Heston. Greatest Story Ever Told, Three Violent People with Charlton Heston, Ann Baxter, Gilbert Rowland. And Charlton was that way also. He was a gentleman, friendly. He was always very, very nice to everybody on the set. And then there are some, you go on there, you think, oh my goodness, these people are, because of their persona on the TV or on the big screen, that they're going to be absolutely wonderful. And turns out they're horrors. They're just terrible people. They make you feel so uncomfortable. But no, Andy was like that, and as I said, Lucy was like that. If you brought something to the table, Lucy was like that. And Mr. Heston was like that. There's Doris Day was like that. We did Doris Day's last movie with Six You Get Egg Roll. I had several people in this business that liked me and always made sure that I had a job. One was Howard Morris, of the famous Sid Caesar, Carl Reiner, Howard Morris. He was a director, did a lot of shows with Howie. A couple writers by the name of Bullock and Allen, Ray Allen and Harvey Bullock. Hy Averback, Gene Reynolds, Alan Rafkin. If there were jobs, and one, and he was absolutely terrific, was Aaron Spelling. Aaron had been an actor, and he'd been with Meyer Michigan, the agent that I told you about. And whenever Christmas came around, you'd always know that Aaron had a job for you, so you'd have Christmas presents in your house. And I did a lot of Love Boats with him, went on the cruises, and did a lot of his shows. Burke's Law. No, it wasn't Burke's Law. It was the other one. He did the spy one that Gene did. I can't remember the name of it. But there are certain people, and they'd always call you, and you'd always can depend on them if there was a role in it. That they today the business is so changed. When I was struggling and trying to make way in the business, if you'd see somebody who was a director or a casting director or a star, hey, Jamie, you know what? We got a script this Wednesday. You'd be terrific. Have your agent call, and we'll call casting and we'll call wardrobe. You'll be terrific in this. It's just a couple of days' work, maybe 4 or 5 lines in it, so forth. And you'd go and you'd do it. I'm going to tell you this story. MASH is we're out of production now. I'm back out into the market, and there's a show that they're going to do at NBC, and I won't tell you, I don't want to put names in here, but there's a kid that it's guaranteed this series is going on the air. I won't tell you who the head of the studio, who the head of the network is at this time at NBC. And they call me in, and they said, look, we have a part in this. You play yourself, but you're going to have to come in and read. So I said, I have to come in? They said, yeah. So I come in, and I read for the producer. He said, fine. Now you're going to have to come back and read for me and the writers. So I said, fine. So I come, this is to play me. So I come back in, I read for the producer and the writers, and they said, fine, but now you're gonna have to come back, read for the producer, the writers, and the star of the show. So I came back, I was okay to come in. Now they said, here's what you have to go to the network and the head of the NBC at that time and the committee. And if they approve of you, the part is yours. So I had to go back in to play me to read for them. And they said, okay, you got it, but here's the salary. We're going to write it down. You can't negotiate. You either take this salary or we'll recast. I took the salary. Show never went on, okay? It was guaranteed to go on. And but that's this business now today. You got to go in and read for everybody. In the days of yore, if they see you, they know what you did, and they'd say, "Go ahead, just come on in and read." I don't know how these actors do it today. It is amazing. You have to go through all kinds. Now some of them, I've been to a few of these auditions, and you have to audition. Yet today, can you believe that for certain parts? They don't even have the actor or the producer there. They have some young person with a camera, and they ask you to say these lines, and somebody reads to you that can't act, the person can't act, and you're supposed to do this audition for them. I don't know where our business is going or where it went. I liked it in the old days.
At one point, you wrote an episode of Blue Light.
Yes, that was another one of my hungry days.
Is
I had
writing
a buddy of
something
mine.
you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, I was writing. My career has been full of all kinds of. I've produced, I've written, I've directed, and I've been out of work in all of them. Okay, so at any rate, this buddy of mine, he was a script supervisor on the show, and he said, "Hey, you know what, Jamie? The show's going to be canceled, and the script that they have now, it's too expensive to do." And I talked to Walter Grauman, and he says, if we could come up with a story or something, and we could and make the story so it wasn't so expensive, we might have a chance at getting a script sale. So I said, great. So I used to come on the set. It was with Robert Goulet, and I'd watch the show, and I'd get an idea, and I'd say, okay, and then we'd run off while they were setting up the next shot, and we'd write something down there, and we came up with this storyline, and they bought it, and we literally wrote the script on the soundstage while they were shooting another episode. So that was my entry into the Writers Guild. I pursued it in various other areas. There was a friend of mine by the name of Eddie Carroll. I had met him years ago at some function. I think we were doing some special thing for Burt Reynolds and Doug McClure at a charity event. And I met this young man. His name, Eddie Carroll, his real name was Elaniak. And he was from Edmonton, Canada, and went to high school with Leslie Nielsen and Robert Goulet. They're from Edmonton. And Eddie and I hit it off. We became great friends, and we actually started writing together. And we created some game shows together. We wrote some cartoon shows together. We did some pilots that we wrote. We were very good, but we just weren't lucky. They didn't really sell. Eddie went on to do the voice of Jiminy Cricket for Disney, and he also did a one-man show of Jack Benny, and he was wonderful. And it's ironic because we were dearest friends, and I wound up doing George Burns, and as you know, George Burns and Jack Benny were the dearest of friends. So, but at any rate, we did some writing with that. We wrote some Swiss Family Robinsons that was shot up in Canada. We did some good things. As I said, we just weren't lucky. Sometimes you have to be lucky, and we wrote a couple pilots that didn't sell. It's unfortunate, and sometimes some of the shows we showed people, we thought they might have seen it, and our idea went on the air. But at any rate, that was that part of my life with my friend Eddie Carroll, who passed away recently.
So, and then,
I wanted to tell you,
Okay.
I told you I've been out of work in all these areas. And while we were doing the TV series MASH, which I know you're going to want to talk about, I went to film school at night. I would shoot all day long, and I'd go to Hollywood, to Columbia College, because I wanted to learn how to edit and work the camera and lighting and everything else. And I actually got a degree every Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday nights for 3 or 4 hours. I would go there, and that's how I got to direct one of the episodes. They allowed me to do that, and they directed the Aftermath, because I learned how to edit. I learned how to set up the camera, the kind of shots, the cuts, the matching, and everything. It was a lot of work, but I enjoyed it. You can imagine that somebody still doing a series, which is not easy to do, and still put in those kind of hours, and then do all the game shows on the weekends as well, which I'm sure you'll get to, but go ahead.
we will. And now in 1971, you did the Chicago Teddy Bears, your first series regular gig.
That's the High Averback and Bullock and Allen. Those names keep reoccurring in my life. High was the producer of the show, and it starred Dean Jones, Art Matrano, Mike Mazurki, Marvin Kaplan, Hunts Hall, Mickey Shaughnessy, and myself. And it was a comedy of the Untouchables. That's what it was, half hour. I got $1,000 an episode, and it saved me again. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be great. It was on CBS on Friday nights. Well, it got terrible reviews, and it didn't get any ratings at all. And after 10 episodes, which equated to $10,000, we were canceled. So I was out of work again. But I had a lot of fun doing the show. Dean Jones was a terrific guy, and of course, High Averback was just great. And of course, High Averback now plays a very important part in my life in getting MASH. High Averback produced a show called F Troop, and there was a role of a stand-up comic Indian for the Hakawi tribe, and they took all of Henny Youngman's jokes, but they made it into Indian jokes. For example, Henny Youngman would say, "Take my wife, please." Well, this would be, "Take my squaw, please." And he'd take every one of those bad jokes, and they give it and make it an Indian joke. The director of that episode is Gene Reynolds. And so I do this stand-up comic Indian, and it's very, very funny. I remember the writer of the show, Arthur Julian, wrote it. And Arthur was another person that liked me, and he would write characters in for me. And the punchline of after I do the comedy routine, the Hakawi chief says, "Don't smoke signal us, we'll smoke signal you." And so Gene remembered that, the director, and if he liked an actor, he'd write it down in his little black book, and he'd put a star by it and so forth. So if something came up in another show, he could recommend that actor. Well, gratefully so, Gene wound up being the producer of MASH. And then when Larry Gelbart had come up with this character of Klinger, which he got from a story that happened with the comedian Lenny Bruce. Lenny Bruce was in the Coast Guard, and the comedian Lenny Bruce. And so the story goes is the sheet came out, dress of the day. Well, that would be either your fatigues or your formal kind of attire that you'd wear. Well, as a joke, because it said dress of the day, Lenny Bruce showed up wearing a dress. So Larry Gelbart thought, hey, that'd be a funny character, a guy wearing a dress trying to get out of the Army. So I get this phone call from my agent, and he said, Gene Reynolds called, and they got a part for you in this new TV series called MASH. I hadn't seen the movie, and of course this series hadn't been on the air yet. So I was one of those periods in my life when I could use the money again, broke, struggling, trying to make a way for my career. And I said, great, what's the part? He said, well, they'll let you know when you get there. I arrive at 20th Century Fox. There's a trailer outside of Stage 9, And Gene greets me, and he takes me into the trailer, and there's this Women's Army Corps uniform hanging up with these huge high heels. And I thought, oh, I must be dressing with an actress. And he says, no, those are yours. Put them on. So I go, oh, my goodness, what kind of part is this? So I put the outfit on, and he starts laughing, the hairy, bowed legs, and that. He says, come on. So he takes me out on to the stage, station 9. I haven't seen the dialogue or anything yet. Well, the craft services guy starts falling down laughing. The camera operator laughs. Everybody's laughing on the stage. I'm saying, what am I doing here? What kind of part is this? The director was a gentleman I had worked with at Screen Gems some time ago. I forgot. Could have been I Dream a Genie. E.W. Swackhammer. That was his name, the director. So they showed me the script. I had a couple lines. Cyril Brooke, who had been on Dukes of Hazzard, was playing a general on the show, and the show was called Chief Surgeon Who. And all I had was a couple of lines. I had this where I was in this wax outfit with a rifle, and I come out of the bushes, and I go, halt, who goes there? And he says, oh, Corporal Klinger, still trying to get out of the Army or something. And I say, yes, that's right, Mary, and I go skipping off. Well, Gene and Larry didn't stay there. They left. And E.W. Swackhammer, who was a guest director, and this is the first time this character shows up, has me doing it in a more of a homosexual way, with lisping and whatever. But hey, I told you, I don't fight with people. I come on, I get my salary. You ask me to do it, I do it, and I go home. So I'm doing whatever they ask me to do. So he had me do the other lines the same way. Well, next day, I get a phone call. It's Gene Reynolds and Larry Gelbart. They said, Jamie, we can't have this. This character couldn't possibly exist this way. Can you come in, and we need to reshoot it? And I go, oh my goodness, what have I done? This is terrible. I've done something. I think I got $250 for the day. So they said, we'll give you another $250. Come on in, let's talk. So they said, what can we do with this? We can't do it that way. And I said, why don't you play the guy straight? In other words, he has a cigar, and he talks just like everybody else, but he wears a dress trying to get out. And I said, let everybody else comment on him, not have him comment on himself. So that as far as he's concerned, this is perfectly normal. This is very natural for what he's trying to do. They said, great, try it that way. Well, rest is history, right? Came on for one day, stayed for 11 years. And that's the way the character was played. And nobody had ever done that before. You think about it. I always tell everybody that's an original character. Because every time anybody has ever, that's a man, put on women's clothing, it was either as a disguise, Some Like It Hot, Charlie's Aunt, or they're trying to be silly, but nobody ever put it on and just played it straight. This is a guy. So that was an original character that I had. Anyway, I did 6 shows that year. Second year came back, did I think 13 of the shows, and then the third year they put me under contract.
For the few people on the planet who have never seen the show, can you describe the premise of it?
The premise of MASH?
Yeah.
It's actually, I found out this later. I'm proud to say of my heritage. Actually, Dr. Michael DeBakey, the heart specialist, who's Lebanese-American, he started that MASH unit in Korea. And I didn't know this till later. I was at a doctor's office, and he said, Jamie, you know who was the original, started the MASH units? I said, no. They said, Dr. Michael DeBakey, the heart specialist. What it is a bunch of, in those days, what they did is they found that to save lives, what they would do is they'd have a surgical unit, doctors and nurses, with some kind of facilities to operate and near the front. so that soldiers who were wounded did not have to go all the way back someplace, that close by they had the facility to look after them, to take the bullets out, to stop the bleeding, to perform operations, as they called it, meatball surgery. And MASH stands for Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. So that they could move. They were intense. And a book was written. I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name. And then a movie was made. Ingo Preminger made the movie, and Robert Altman did the directing of it. And I hadn't seen the film. So Gene Reynolds and Larry Gelbart thought this would be a great idea for a series. And they took it to William Self over at 20th Century Fox. And one of the things that they were concerned about was that they would be in your home every week. You couldn't show the blood and things that they did in the movie, because I guess the movie was pretty explicit. They showed all kinds of blood on their gloves and everything else, and things you could get away with, which you couldn't do on a TV series. And the network was a little hesitant about it. They said, well, how do you do a show like that every week? And Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds said, well, we can do it. We'll figure it out. And they went to Alan Alda. They had seen Alan in a show, a TV show, and I think they knew of his work on Broadway, and they went to him. And Alan said, I'm interested as long as you don't make it Abbott and Costello at the front. And so they said, no, we're going to try to touch on serious subjects and so forth. So they put their cast members together, and I wasn't included in that because I wasn't in the pilot. And they used the sets that they had used at the ranch, which is not too far from where I live here, and on Les Virgenes at the old 20th Century Fox Ranch. They used the exteriors from that, and then they built the interior-exterior set on Stage 9 at 20th Century Fox. One of the things that they did also is they tried to talk the network into not having a laugh track, and the network said, oh, no, we have to have a laugh track. But they said what we will do is not have a laugh track in the operating room. So that's how they got away with that. If you watch the show, you'll see that all the quips going back and forth over the operating tables, that there is no laugh track, but the other areas they did have. And the show actually got okay reviews when it aired. It had terrible ratings. It was like number 58 or something like that out of 65 shows. It was on Sunday night opposite Wonderful World of Disney. And they were going to cancel it. And thank goodness, at that time, Bill Paley, who was the chairman of CBS, was married to a lovely, lovely lady who we all called Babe Paley. And Babe Paley said, I like the show. And if the wife of the chairman of the network says they like the show and he wants to be in favor with his wife, you keep the show on. So thanks to Babe Paley, the show stayed on. They put it on Saturday night in the greatest lineup in the history of television. I can't give you the exact schedule it was, but I believe it was started with like All in the Family. I think, was it Mary Tyler Moore, MASH, Bob Newhart Show, and Carol Burnett. And nobody left their homes. Movie tickets were down. Theater tickets were down. Restaurant reservations were down. And the way they would measure the Nielsen is like when a commercial went on, if people got up to go to the bathroom, the water level in the city would go down. And that's how they knew also that everybody was staying home to watch that great night on Saturday night. And that's what saved MASH, actually, was that great lineup. It's never been duplicated. I think that is the finest lineup in the history of television, that Saturday night.
Absolutely. What did you think of the first script you saw when you saw a MASH script?
I didn't really think much of it. As I said at that time, my career had gone up and down, up and down, up and down, and most of the time it was down. So I was just grateful that I had a job. I had no idea. I had been in so many shows and had been let go from so many shows, had been on shows that didn't make it. And so, truthfully, I was just happy to know that I was showing up someplace and doing a job. Those days when you're young and eager and you think, oh my goodness, I've got to really be wonderful in this and everything else. I had gone through the series of all those things and had been disappointed so many times in my career. So at this point, I was hoping it would stay on the air, and whatever I could do, whatever they told me to do, I was happy to do it. So I never really looked at it with a critical eye. Is this good? Is this bad? It was a job that I got a weekly paycheck from. Now, that may sound like a terrible thing, but it isn't, truthfully. If you've this is my 57th, 59th year in the business, and so I've had a lot of ups and downs in it. And I was grateful that I had a regular job for a change.
Do you know of any other actors that were up for the same role?
No, there was no one. That's what I said. In those days, if they wanted you, they got you. Today, you have to go through a process that's unbelievable. Committees that have to okay you, whether or not they want you or not. And the guy said, I like you, you're in. And gratefully so, I was in. People liked me, so.
And you find out pretty soon that Klinger's coming back. So what did they tell you? What was the reason for Klinger's return?
Well, at that time, they had so many characters in that show. It's a half-hour show, and as we know, it's not a full 30 minutes because you got commercials and you got all the titles that go into the show and the credits, etc. So they had, I'm trying to remember, they had Ugly John, they had Ho John, the houseboy. They had Spear Chucker. They had Lieutenant Dishy. They had Ginger the nurse. They had a guy from Oklahoma. They had so many characters beside the leads that they had. The names that they had in the show. So they were looking for a shakedown. Too many characters crossed over. They were too similar. So they were looking for individuals. And I think Klinger was obviously an individual. I mean, nobody had ever seen anything like that character before in movies or on television. So that was an original. And then they just kept saying, okay, we got Trapper John, we got Hawkeye, we got Hot Lips, we got Frank Burns, we got Radar, we got Colonel Blake, we got Father Mulcahy, and that was the nucleus. And that all worked out very nicely. As I said earlier, when you have the right chemistry, it's amazing how good the scripts can be and how good the stories can be. There's that magic that happens. Abbott and Costello doing Who's On First. It just happens, and it works. And you can watch them over and over and over again. That's what's so great about MASH. People tell me that when they see it, it's not dated like some shows are. It still has a relevancy.
Absolutely.
And a quality to it that, thanks to the guidance of the producers and directors and the wonderful writers and that great, great, great cast.
And now, what did you think about the concept of cross-dressing, and how did your fans react to it?
I didn't know I had fans. You have to remember something. This is all new to me. What was great fun is when you go to a market after that, you've been on the show, and you see if anybody's going to recognize you. So you go walking around, I'll go down this aisle. I don't really need anything in that aisle, but I'll walk down it anyway. So, you know what? I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I really got the impact. I'll tell you, when I first realized how really significant that show was and what we meant to the public. When you do a series, and especially you work those 5 days a week, you cut very early in the morning at the studio and very late at night. So you're like in this warehouse, all right? And you've got lines to learn the next day. Well, the show that really made an impact on me with the audience was a show called Big Mac. It was the one where General MacArthur is going to visit the camp. And so everybody's going to get ready. Oh, my goodness, we got to be prepared for him and everything else. And, of course, Klinger, he starts showing up in these different outfits, and Colonel Blake wants to hide him. It's an embarrassment. They don't want General MacArthur to see this character. I think I had joppers on with a riding crop, and I had a Japanese geisha outfit on or something. So the whole idea, oh my goodness, he's going to be coming, you got to prepare for him. And so, of course, General MacArthur finally arrives. He comes through, everybody stands at attention like that, and he drives right straight through, doesn't even pay any attention to the MASH unit. And then you see him, he's down this road, and all of a sudden he perks up, and he looks over to the side, and he salutes, throws a highball, and it's Klinger in the Statue of Liberty outfit with the flaming torch, Where he got it, I have no idea. But, I tell you, everybody told me they'd be sitting at home and they actually fell off their sofas and their chairs on the floor laughing at that last bit. I happened to go into Beverly Hills that next day, and I was walking around there, and bus drivers would be honking the horn and waving at me, and cab drivers and people that were just on the street driving all over the place. I go, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, the MacArthur Statue of Liberty. And I said, wow, we're not just in that warehouse at Pico and Motor Avenue. We're going out all over the world, People are watching this show. So that's the one show that really made an impact on me.
Yeah. Did you have input into Klinger's wardrobe choices?
I did. Yeah, I did. The guy that picked the wardrobe was he was a scout for the LA Dodgers. he was wardrobe guy, and we go into the wardrobe department at 20th Century Fox, and he'd pick out something that was absolutely horrendous, horrible. That and we go, yeah, that's good. We'll wear that. Burt Metcalf, our producer, used to come in there and do it. I wore some things, as a matter of fact, that famous people did. I think I had something that Betty Grable had worn, something that Alice Faye had worn, Dame Mae Whitty had worn on the show. And this one is one of my favorite stories. I had an outfit on that Ginger Rogers had worn. And I wore it in one of the shows. And as a matter of fact, we did a Fred Astaire, Ginger Roger scene. And the next day after that show had aired, I was in the commissary at 20th Century Fox, and Ginger Rogers was on the lot doing a Love Boat, I think, because Love Boat was filmed at 20th Century Fox. And she came over to my table and she says, Jamie, I saw that show last night. She says, I got to tell you something. You looked a hell of a lot better in that dress than I did.
Tell us about the dog tags that you wore.
Those were my dog tags that I wore for real in the Army. And I just did it just to have something for real, my service. And actually, when we shot at the ranch, I had been in Korea, as I told you, and it was very, very similar, the topography, the geography of it. And so it did remind me of the time. We actually went through some MASH units, Red Skelton and I did. I'm never ever thinking that I would be a part of a show like that, but to see all those GIs all banged up and covered with bandages and their faces covered and everything else, it was. And Red was wonderful because he, just like Bob Hope and all of them, all the entertainers that would go over there, just to make them laugh, see somebody from home, and it was great. It was very difficult for me for my career because I couldn't get back to where I was. But I got to tell you something, it certainly made you grow up a lot. You became a good citizen, having served and seeing what was going on. So I'm glad I did. Even though, as I said, it was tough on my career and tough on my getting back into the business. I know when I came back, I said to some of the people, they said, well, where you been? I said, well, I've been in the military, serving. That's where I've been. And, of course, they don't want to hire you because your credits are not up to date. So it was tough. I had an acting class after I left Pasadena Playhouse with a wonderful teacher by the name of Jack Coslin. And in that class was Clint Eastwood. Clint was cleaning swimming pools at the time, and I was cleaning chinchilla dropping pans in Burbank, California at a chinchilla ranch. We'd do our scenes together. And I wonder whatever happened to Clint. He had so much talent. It's a shame.
Did you have any awkward off-camera moments dressed as Klinger?
Oh gosh, yes. Several. First of all, to get high heels that size, and they were high heels, and they were very expensive. I remember we were doing some scenes up. I think Linda Bloodworth Thompson and Mary Kay Place had written an episode. It was called Springtime, where I fall in love with this girlfriend back in Toledo, and I'm in this yellow outfit, and I'm up in the hills reading poetry and so forth. And I find out that she's in love with me, and she wants to marry me, and I go running through the hills looking for the colonel to see if I can get back home and everything else. Well, the heels were those stiletto heels, so they would sink right into the ground like that, and I was snapping them off. And they were like, at that time, it was expensive. It was like $35, $40 a pair. As a matter of fact, the brand name was El Grande, the big one. So finally, they started having me, since you couldn't see the feet, they said, well, put them in tennis shoes, because I would fall and trip and everything else. And then, of course, a lot of times, if you're on the set and you don't have your director's chair and you're wearing a skirt, a dress outfit, you sit down on one of those hard metal folding chairs. Well, boy, I'll tell you something. If it's cold on the set, boy, you go, right up to the ceiling. So I used to make sure that I had my stand-in sit with his trousers on the chair before I sat down in my chair. But yeah, you run into those kind of. Oh, here's one. This one is really funny. Now, I'm doing Klinger, and my character hasn't aired yet. It's not on the TV. So I have this black dress on, really tight black dress with a zipper that goes up the back. And I was up in my dressing room, and I thought I was going to be in the last shot. And they finally said, no, you're not. Just go on home. We'll get it in the morning. So I'm up in my dressing room, and I'm trying to get out of the dress. And I can't get the zipper back, and I go down to see if any of the cast members are there, and nobody's there. So I go to the stage, sound stage, see if somebody can help me, and nobody's there either. So I see the light on in the men's restroom. So I go, oh, somebody's in there. So now I go into the men's restroom. I'm in this black sheath, tight outfit on, and there's this big grip. He's got hands, like hams and that. He's washing his hands. So I said, he doesn't know who the heck I am. He hasn't seen the show. It hasn't been on the air. He says, sir, I says, could you help me? Could you unzip me? So the guy looks at me, he goes, yeah, okay, but I'm sure he's wondering what's going to happen next, So he did unzip me, and I got out of there real fast, though. But that's an actual thing that happened. I couldn't find anybody, and he was a guy. I wish I knew his name. I'd find out where he is and say, I'm sorry if I embarrassed you in any way.
Did you have a favorite Klinger outfit?
There were so many. They were hysterical. The Gone with the Wind outfit, the Betty Davis outfit, the Statue of Liberty outfit, the kimono outfit. He was such a bizarre, wonderful character. And the nice thing about it is that no matter what he did, you'd buy it. After a while, you just buy it. They'd show him at a sewing machine, so you knew how he, came up with stuff like that. And the cast and the writers loved it because you could do anything with him. He was perfectly acceptable. Now, the one, I remember that one. I came in. Our dear Harry Morgan, who just passed away, played Colonel Potter. One episode, I came in, and I said to him that I don't deserve to be in the Army, that I was a communist. And Colonel Potter says, Bolshevik? And I say, no, honest, sir. Another one where Colonel Blake, and I come in and I tell him I'm pregnant. And it goes through he goes through the sheets of, I got father pregnant, mother pregnant, sister pregnant, to get out. And then there was the other one, the one I think Harry used to laugh at was the one where I come in, I'm all dressed in black, and I tell him I have to get to Toledo because my brothers, Maurice and Hakeem, have been killed in an explosion in the basement of the Toledo harmonica factory. So stupid.
Excellent. Stop there to change tape.
All right.